César Ramos walked to the pitch-side monitor, watched a replay, and deleted a goal that 60,000 people had already celebrated. Brazil won the match anyway, 3-0. Vinicius scored again before the final whistle. So why did the most successful nation in World Cup history just file the most explosive formal complaint ever submitted to FIFA? And why is Lionel Messi's name inside it? Ask yourself one question before we go further. Was VAR protecting the game or protecting certain teams? The scene is Miami Stadium, 21st minute, Brazil versus Scotland. Vinicius Jr surges onto a loose ball, dispossesses Jack Hendry with a committed physical challenge, and finishes with the composure that has made him one of the most feared forwards alive. Clean contact, clinical finish, the net moves. Ramos points to the center circle. Goal given. Then his earpiece crackles. The VAR team in the review center has flagged the buildup. Ramos is called to the monitor. He watches the replay. He reverses his own decision. The goal is gone. Vinicius's challenge on Hendry ruled a foul before he ever touched the ball. On the touchline, Carlo Ancelotti, 5 Champions League titles, the most decorated manager in the history of the sport, turns away in silence. His coaching staff erupts. Brazil's players swarm the referee in a wave of fury that takes long minutes to subside. That moment, 11 seconds of footage on a pitchside screen, is what started all of this. But the goal being disallowed is not actually the story. What happened next is. Because Brazil didn't just protest, they built a case. Here is the rule FIFA wrote. VAR at this World Cup is not designed to correct every marginal or debatable call. It exists, by FIFA's own published protocol, only to intervene when a clear and obvious error has been made by the on-field referee. Not a borderline decision, not a matter of interpretation, a clear and obvious error. The Brazilian Football Confederation, the CBF, put that standard at the center of its formal complaint. Their argument is direct. Ramos made a correct initial decision. The contact between Vinicius and Hendry did not remotely meet the threshold required to trigger a review. VAR intervened in a situation it was never designed to touch. The CBF's letter to Infantino states it plainly. The disallowed goal does not appear to be aligned with the philosophy adopted in this competition. Because if VAR overstepped its own rules to erase Brazil's goal, the next question writes itself. Has it overstepped for everyone or only for Brazil? The CBF had a choice. They could have cited a minor match, a forgotten call, a moment FIFA could quietly dismiss. They didn't. They reached for the biggest name in the history of the sport and placed him directly inside their formal complaint to FIFA's president. In Argentina's second group match against Austria, midfielder Alexis McAllister made a physical challenge on Austria's Xaver Schlager. The CBF argues that challenge was similar in nature and contact to the Vinicius foul on Hendry. No foul was given. No VAR review followed. The goal stood. Messi's name went on the score sheet. Brazil then laid both incidents side by side in a document sent to FIFA headquarters. Same tournament, same VAR system, same type of challenge. 2 completely different outcomes. That is not frustration. That is a prosecution. And the CBF was precise about what they were asking for. Not a reversal of the disallowed goal. They said so explicitly. Their stated demand is that the criteria governing VAR intervention be applied consistently, transparently, and equally to all teams throughout the tournament. That sentence is now on the formal record of this World Cup. FIFA cannot pretend they never read it. But the Messi comparison was only the second weapon in the letter. The first had been loaded for 8 years. Here is what makes the Messi comparison so difficult for FIFA to dismiss. The CBF did not claim the 2 incidents were identical. They claimed they were similar enough that VAR's inconsistent response demands an explanation. And that distinction matters enormously. FIFA's own VAR threshold is clear and obvious. If the Vinicius challenge was clear and obvious enough to overturn a goal, then McAllister's challenge on Schlager, by the CBF's documented argument, should have triggered at minimum a review. It did not. The reviewer saw it. The monitor was available. The protocol existed. Nothing happened. That asymmetry is the heart of Brazil's case. Not that Messi cheated, not that Argentina were favored by design, but that the same system, operated by the same officials, in the same tournament, produced two irreconcilable outcomes for two physically comparable challenges. One nation lost a goal, the other kept one. The CBF put both facts in writing and handed them to the man who runs world football. Now FIFA must either explain the difference or admit there isn't one. And the complaint was still not finished. If you have never seen a national federation go to war with FIFA in writing during a live tournament, subscribe now, because the next part of this story has no modern precedent. 8 years ago, Russia. Brazil versus Switzerland, group stage, 2018 World Cup. César Ramos is the referee. The match ends 1-1, a result Brazil have never accepted. In their letter to Infantino, the CBF cited that fixture by name, alleging that a clear penalty was refused and a foul in the build-up to the Swiss equalizer went uncalled. Ramos made those decisions in 2018. FIFA handed him a Brazil match again in 2026. The CBF argues that appointment should never have happened. Their language carries no diplomatic softening. They describe a negative history with the official, contend the friction was documented and known, and then issue a demand that has no modern equivalent at a major tournament. Not rotation, not review, removal. The CBF wants Ramos permanently banned from every remaining Brazil fixture at this World Cup, filed in writing, addressed to the president of FIFA. If FIFA grants it, every federation learns that formal complaints can move referee appointments. If FIFA refuses, they must explain why a documented 8-year history of friction is insufficient grounds for reassignment. There is no clean exit from that question. So what did FIFA say? Nothing. No public comment on the letter. No statement about the disallowed goal. No indication the Ramos appointment is under review. No acknowledgement that the Messi comparison is sitting formally on their record. The organization that governs world football received the most precisely argued officiating complaint in World Cup history and responded with complete institutional silence. That silence is its own kind of answer. Because FIFA had options. They could have confirmed receipt. They could have announced an internal review. They could have said 3 words, "We are investigating." They chose none of them. Consider what that silence asks the watching world to believe, that a formal written complaint from the Brazilian Football Confederation, obtained by a major national newspaper, citing a named referee, a named rival nation, and a specific 2018 precedent, does not require even a holding statement. That the most successful footballing nation in history can file a prosecution-level document with FIFA's president and receive in return nothing but air. FIFA's silence is not neutral. Silence from power is always a decision. Let's be precise about what the CBF has actually done here, because the language matters. They did not lodge an appeal. They did not request a meeting. They did not ask FIFA to reconsider. They filed a formal written prosecution, named a specific official, cited an 8-year pattern of decisions, and demanded his permanent removal from their fixtures at an active World Cup. That has never happened before. Not in 1966 when England's disputed goal against West Germany stood. Not in 1986 when Maradona's hand went uncalled. Not in 2010 when Frank Lampard's goal that crossed the line was waved away. In none of those moments did a national federation respond with a formal removal demand against a named referee during the tournament itself. Brazil did, in 2026, in writing. And the consequences of that document extend far beyond this match. If FIFA acts on the demand, referee appointment becomes a negotiation, and every powerful federation will know it. If FIFA ignores it, the CBF's documented evidence sits permanently on the record of this tournament, impossible to expunge, available to every journalist, lawyer, and federation official who comes after. Brazil have ensured that whatever FIFA decides, the decision itself becomes the story. That is not accident, that is architecture. Here is the contradiction at the center of this entire story. Brazil won, 3-0. Vinicius scored again after his goal was erased. Brazil topped Group C and faced Japan in Houston. Carlo Ancelotti's squad looks like one of the strongest teams remaining in this tournament. On the scoreboard, nothing was stolen, but Brazil filed the complaint anyway, because this was never about the result. It was about the standard. The CBF's letter says so explicitly. Their interest is not to revisit individual decisions, but to ensure VAR criteria are applied consistently, transparently, and equally to all teams. That sentence is a demand dressed as a principle, and it contains a warning every referee and appointment committee at this World Cup should now hear clearly. Brazil are watching. Brazil are documenting. Brazil are comparing every call made against them with every call made for everyone else. They didn't write that letter because they lost. They wrote it because they won, and they still weren't treated equally. Somewhere in FIFA headquarters, a letter sits on a desk. Infantino's name on the front, Messi's name inside, still waiting for a reply. Brazil filed a formal complaint with named evidence, a documented precedent, and the most famous footballer alive used as a witness, and FIFA responded with silence. So here's the question this tournament now cannot escape. Was FIFA's silence incompetence, or was it a deliberate answer about who the rules at this World Cup actually protect?